Viewership rising, okay? And this is a conversation on the recent record-setting viewership that we've seen across various women's sports. And this panel, rather, is going to talk about some strategies, software, and how the data is powering all of this as well. So, to bring us up, our moderator, Kelly Pracht, co-founder of CEO of nVenue. Hello, Kelly. It's a great name. It's my sister's name. Well done. nVenue? Yeah. And our speakers, Karen Brodkin, co-head of WME Sports and executive vice president of Endeavor, Rebecca Dyer, who's the director of business development and sales at Genius Sports, and Julie Sobieski, I know Julie, senior vice president of league programming and acquisitions at ESPN. Welcome.
I feel like we should follow that with a dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. All right, welcome to a viewership panel where we're going to talk about women's sports and the growth and the rocket growth of viewership. We are a mix of women up here talking about different perspectives. We're looking at it from the areas of data, technology, production, content, brand, and promotion. So I'm really excited about what we're going to share today. Let's start with a little bit of an introduction. My name is Kelly Pracht. I am bringing the technology point of view. So I founded a sports tech startup about 5 years ago, and we do live predictive analytics. You'll see us on MLB Network, Apple TV, League Pass. We partner with NASCAR, the NBA, and we're going live in about 1,000 sports books in this next year. So excited how we're changing viewership through letting fans engage. Let's pass it over to you, Karen. Tell us yourself and what you do.
Hi, everyone. Karen Brodkin. I'm definitely not the tech on the panel. I'll take one of the other subjects.
All right.
I co-run WME Sports, and I'm the EVP at Endeavor, which is the parent company. I sort of have a dual role at WME Sports, do media advisory and strategy for a number of different sports properties, and for purposes of this panel, we advise the NWSL on their most recent media deals. We advise the NCAA on their championship package, which included all of their women's championships, including the women's basketball tournament, in a deal that closed at the beginning of the year with Julie and our friends at ESPN. We've also advised the NBA and the WNBA, the other part of my role is I oversee the athlete representation, where we represent some of the top women athletes in the world, including both Williams sisters, Serena Ionescu, Candace Parker, Lindsey Vonn, and a whole slew, very excited, of young collegiate student athletes, including a lot of women student athletes. That's me.
Excellent. Hey, everyone. My name is Rebecca Dyer. I am with Genius Sports, and I work closely with a lot of our North American partners, conferences, leagues, and media partners. And so a lot of what we do as a data collection company is we're working with teams and leagues and conferences, as I said, and we're bringing in a lot of data. And with that data, it's sometimes hard to, in its raw form, to really understand and kind of digest what that is. And so a lot of machine learning and AI layers will come over top of what we do. Some of our partners are the WNBA. We just finished our first year with them, and very excited about all of that. And I work closely as well with the NBA, our NCAA partners, as well as our media partners. So happy to be here.
Great. Hi, I'm Julie Sobieski with ESPN. I'm a senior vice president of programming and acquisitions. I focus on our league professional sports business, and excited to be here. So we represent the business relationships with our league partners, as well as the conduits across the Walt Disney Company for the sports relationships that we have in driving the business and innovation. We also handle the content and scheduling of all of that programming, work really closely, obviously, with the WNBA, excited for the new deal that we just did, and for extending that long-term partnership, as well as now working with Athletes Unlimited and Love Volleyball, and just excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, well, let's kick this off. As I was preparing for this panel and thinking about all of these metrics, all of these things that we're seeing, like this huge growth in viewership and the headlines, and those are really exciting, and thousands of these metrics. But then I was thinking about my own business and how that's driving new metrics for us. So, for example, 2 years ago when we were talking about putting out micro bets for WNBA, the sports books, quite honestly, they laughed at us and they said, no, we don't want that. But this year, they're hungry for it. And all of a sudden, our pipeline for WNBA growth is 5 times what it was. It's incredible. And I don't think we're going to see those types of headlines, but as we all deal with, the business behind the viewership, what are some of the growth metrics that you've experienced and that you're seeing that maybe this audience would love to know, but they're not going to see in the headlines anytime soon? Why don't we start with Julie?
I'll start. Sure, I'll start. I mean, they obviously coming off of Sunday and this week, we have to start with the success of the WNBA this year. It's just been phenomenal. And women's basketball, starting obviously with the NCAA championship game, over 18 million viewers for that game. Phenomenal metrics. The WNBA season for us has been the most in 25 years from a viewership perspective. The finals were a huge success, best in 25 years from a viewership perspective. And so the fans are here. Everyone has woken up and realized that there's fantastic women's basketball to watch at all levels, and we're thrilled to be a part of it.
Awesome. How about for you, Rebecca? How about so Second Spectrum was acquired by Genius Sports. They put out this amazing slew of data about everything that's happening on the court. I know you've got some really good metrics and what you've been seeing.
Yep, absolutely. So from the data and technology side of things, I've had the privilege to work closely with each of our 12 WNBA teams, as well as the league office itself. And so what I love most is now that each team has access to the data and the advanced analytics that the NBA grew accustomed to having. And so now having that ability to work individually with each team and educate them on these advanced stats is really just a stepping stone for us as we look to the future with partnerships like ESPN and how we can get fan engagement involved not only at a broadcast level, but even in arena. Those are things that are really exciting for us as we look to take that next step and not just keep it centric to the teams themselves, but also to the broader next generation of viewers.
Karen, when it comes to brand and representation, you've got some really cool stories. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how that's impacting the world of viewership, but also just the success of women players?
Yeah, I mean, I think the story that's been told, but I think putting the connection together is important. I think as you see the viewership numbers, I think part of this sort of concept of the wave of viewership is that the athletes are coming into these leagues as pros with really strong brand, content, personal brand, and then by extension, brand relationships. And now, and listen, I won't comment on everything around NIL and the settlement, but from a relationship standpoint, from the standpoint of representing athletes, and for purposes of this discussion, women athletes, NIL has been fantastic. And we're signing these young women, and we're seeing unbelievable brand enthusiasm. So when they leave college and go play in the WNBA or the NWSL or wherever it takes them next, they're now coming in with years of brand content on their digital, social engagement, and they're bringing that to the league. And I do think that that is helping fuel this. And I think for Julie's business, and the business that we're in this together, right? She's gonna hopefully continue to we'll use the WNBA as an example. She's gonna continue to put the W in the best possible platform and position for growth. And our job is, along with our clients, is to bring to the WNBA amazing social engagement, brand relationships, and that's going to continue to lift. So I think there's a connectivity. But I would tell you at the beginning of NIL, we really didn't know what to expect in terms of the opportunities for student athletes, let alone women student athletes. And I can tell you, they are some of our easiest clients to sell. And I don't mean to local brands in the collegiate markets. I mean to major national brands, the Allstates, the beverage companies, the financial services companies, because they're great brand ambassadors and they have unbelievable social engagement.
I think one of the metrics that I read was that women sports fans respond much more readily to brand. Like they're like almost 2x more likely to purchase when they see a brand with a woman athlete. So very powerful things that you guys are doing over there. One of the things as we put out our content, like on Apple TV, we start putting probabilities and such. We've learned a lot over the last 3 years about how fans respond to numbers on the screen, and learned about the demographics and how male fans respond differently to watching, and they actually watch sports differently than some female fans. Even today, we heard Kathy say that her son was watching 7-minute clips when she was watching the full game. So this whole change in viewership and the evolution of how we experience sports, Julie, I wonder how you guys are handling that at ESPN, and are you doing things like altcast, or what's your response to evolution of viewership?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're looking to serve sports fans, wherever they are and meet them where they are. We have the good fortune of having so many platforms, networks, and platforms, our leading digital and social platforms as well. And so streaming certainly has also opened up the bandwidth and created another large platform for us to be able to expose particularly women's sports for the purposes of this conference. And we've got a lot of levers to pull when it comes to engaging fans. And as you said, they may be watching on YouTube, they may be watching on ESPN Plus from a streaming platform. We put the NCAA championship volleyball game on ABC. We had the opener of the NWSL on ABC. You may have seen the opener for WNBA this year, knowing that it was just such a moment for the league and for fans. We were able to unlock that on Disney Plus. It was the first time that we had a live sporting event on Disney Plus available. That was a fantastic lever for us to be able to pull and kick off that season, introducing the WNBA to an even larger and more casual audience to get them excited about the storylines for the year. So we're always looking to create that content from original content series that we've done. This year we did a full court press series showcasing Caitlin Clark and Camila Cardozo and Kiki Rice. So it was another opportunity for us to storytell and deepen the engagement and find ways for fans to connect so that then they come back for the live games. And studio is another important place for us, not just specific studio that is specific to women's sports like WNBA Countdown and Women's College Game Day and things that I think we've been looking forward to bringing to fans for a long time. We've now really hit our stride in those studio shows, but now women's sports has become mainstream talk across all of our studio shows with SportsCenter and First Take and the Pat McAfee show and across the board, and I think that's really where we have a big opportunity is to continue to grow in those spaces.
If you were to look forward just a few years, do you have a prediction on what we might see?
I just think we've got so much opportunity as we continue to move more and more in the streaming space and the social space for us. I think we're just going to continue to see more and more content opportunities, but it's really up for us to sort of meet fans where they are and create engaging content that they're looking for on the platforms that they're using at any given time during the day. So only up from here.
Love it, love it. So let's switch over from the media rights and the media world over into the data world. So we, my company, we intake data from Genius Sports and Sport Radar and the like, and I counted it up not long ago. We bring in 480 trillion data points over the course of a full year. What Rebecca and team are doing blows that out of the water with what they're doing and data. Can you tell us about that? But specifically, how are we going to have enhanced viewership from some of that really advanced data that you guys are collecting?
Sure. So to give you an idea of how we collect our data, we have cameras in every single WNBA arena, and what that's doing is tracking player and ball. And so as those millions and millions of data points are coming across live in real time, as I said before, we're sitting on top of that data with a semantics layer or the language of basketball to say, okay, where's this player? What are they doing in the particular action? So what we would know from that is, okay, Sabrina and Jonquil in a pick and roll where the defense is playing soft, they are averaging roughly around 1.3 points per interaction with that pick and roll. And so when you take those data points and you're able to not only educate teams on how you can use it from a tactical standpoint, or how you're going to view player performance and incorporate those different types of things, now we get to shift our view here and understand how we can engage our fans. And so with that, we said before, the partnerships with like ESPN and how we're doing these alt casts, we can take that same data that we're providing to teams and then partner with media partners to be able to bring those elements to life. And so as you touched on with Kathy this morning, her son is watching a quick highlight, right? And so that might be a clip that's been pulled, let's say a three-point attempt by Caitlin Clark that was 30 feet back occurred. What we can do with that is bring in broadcast enhancements to say an explosion occurred at the rim whenever that three-point shot went in. And we can really start to get creative here to where you're bringing in new sponsorable assets. And so you have brands that you can include that are going to now be very interested in some of this engagement from our side. And so from there, we're really excited. So in year one that we just finished, this was really just a team-facing kind of application. And from there is where the excitement comes in, to be able to pull in brands, sponsorships, and different ways that we're incorporating and bringing new eyes to the game itself. And so a lot to be excited about in the future.
Really cool, really cool. If you guys have ever seen that, it's what they do is brilliant. I could watch it all day, and I do. So tell me, I want to talk about brands and partnerships. So this is an area where it's on the other side of the tech, but I know that there's been so much change and so much traction even in what we do. Tell me about the change in brand and how the athletes are getting represented. What have you seen change over the last 2 years, this year, and what do you think the next few years will be like?
Well, I think, first of all, I do think that from a league perspective, the brands that are coming in to support the leagues has made a significant impact. I can tell you it did for the NWSL. And when we were representing the league in their media negotiations, the brands that were coming along and to be frank, saying to ESPN, saying to CBS, saying to Amazon, make this deal and we will come in and support with media buys. I think that was really meaningful. And if you look at the cross section, there are brands that are not, that are not known to be necessarily female-focused brands that are buying the WNBA or buying the NWSL and not buying the male counterpart. And I think that is a really interesting reality, and we spend a lot of time thinking about that because they're not just talking to female viewers, and I don't want that to get lost. From a media perspective, none of these deals get done if the only one that's watching are female audiences. The fact of the matter is that men are watching too, and that's what's attracting these brands, whether they're female-focused or not. From an athlete perspective, I brought some stats just because it's hard to remember these things, but when you look at, I'll just use one of our clients because that's what I have accessible. Just Sabrina Ionescu, who we've represented since, when she left Oregon. She's got deals with Nike, Tissot, Mick Ultra, Body Armor, AT&T, CarMax, and Fanatics. Several of those are national spots, right? Some of those are also buying into the sport. She's the first women basketball player to ever have a unisex signature shoe and apparel collection that is routinely selling out. That's because boys and men are buying those shoes, not just women. That's the concept of unisex. These facts are not just going to be unique to Sabrina. I really believe that. So I'm not just speaking of our clients. I think just as I think the WNBA is more than Caitlin Clark. I think she fueled it, but you don't get those numbers on Sunday night in a game like that against the Mets, Dodgers, and Sunday Night Football if it's not more than just one athlete. So as I said, I think what we're seeing are brands that are coming alongside athletes, whether it's basketball, soccer. Obviously, we've seen it, frankly, we've seen it in years in women's tennis. With the Williams and beyond the Williams sisters. And I think they're attaching in real, true partnership relationships, not just endorsement, not just we'll run a national commercial for you, but sort of long-term, deep engagement. And I honestly believe the sky's the limit on that. We won't get into what these women are making on the court, but I can tell you that we've seen for Candace Parker, business relationships and a business portfolio that in 1 year could exceed the revenue that she made on the court. And I don't say that as a negative because I think the business portfolio is very important to these athletes, right? I think it's the on-court, the on-field, the partnership relationships with brands, the equity type relationship deals that they're doing. Aaliyah Boston, in her first year in the league, wanted to do broadcasting. We brought her to the Big Ten, and she worked on the Big Ten basketball tournament. So I think you're going to see a different path for everyone, just like you do for the men. I mean, it's frankly no different. That's where you know you're in success, when it's really no different for the women than it is for the men. And I think we're starting to see that delta close.
I couldn't agree more. I was lucky enough to go to the NBA All-Star Week this year and got to see Sabrina in the three-point shootout versus Steph, and that was life-changing for me. I bet on her. I thought that somehow she would feel my vote of confidence through my DraftKings bet. She barely lost, but you know what? We had connection in the stands. I was sitting around a bunch of sports betting partners with the NBA, and we were all cheering for her. And we weren't cheering for her because she was a woman. It was because she was a damn good athlete. And that's the common element that I think you see between the four of us is we're creating tech and we're creating product that's building viewership around women's sports because it's a great sport and they're great
As
at what
long as
they
we're
do.
talking about betting, I took my 16-year-old captain of the varsity basketball team son to All-Star Weekend, and we were there for that event, and he said, I'd take her one-on-one. And I said, really? I'll take that bet.
Oh, that's good. That's better than my bet. 100%. So we've got a few minutes left, so I want to end on what's going well, what are we doing right, and what do we need to change. I'll lead and then let you guys wrap it up. I think we're doing right in that the topic is becoming about basketball or soccer or amazing athletes. We're not talking about the fact that they're women. This is sports, not women's sports. And I think we're starting to see that, just like you said, with brands, we're starting to see it become all. I think what we need to change is I think we need to recognize we're different demographics that are watching. I think, whether it's betting, whether it's analytics that are coming on the screen, whether it's different types of data, we all of us, whether we're male, female, avid fan, casual fan, when it comes to viewership, this is a whole new demographic. It's more like the Super Bowl party than the sports book, in my opinion, and that's what we need to change. So I'll pass it back to you and tell me what is going well and what would you like to see change?
I could make a joke that what's going best is that there's 4 women on this stage and we're not having a conversation about what it's like being a woman working in sports.
Yes.
That's kind of nice. What's going well? I mean, listen, I think everything that we spoke about today is a sign that things are going quite well. I like the fact that just within our 4 walls, we don't have a women's sports division. I don't have a women's basketball division. I have a basketball division. And our women are represented exactly the same way as our men are represented. I think what I always say could get better is I think we have to give these leagues and these sports grace. Like every year is not going to be a banner year, and there are going to be ebbs and flows, just like there are in the NFL and the NBA and the NHL and Major League Baseball and on and on and on. And I think that will be the sign of progress, right? Every day isn't going to be the top of the top, but as long as it's going like this. It doesn't have to go like this, right? We don't have to have a Caitlin Clark phenomenon every single year. I feel good. I feel like we're in the right direction. I can tell you the market is there and the market is responding, and there's no begging people to the table. There is a very engaged, active marketplace, and I just want to see women's sports get the same grace that the male leagues have gotten for years.
Yeah, I think that what we're doing well is the respect factor. And Jane touched on it in a panel earlier where you're getting what you're deserved now and not so much like, oh, well, we should do it because it's the right thing to do. I have a 9-year-old son, and he has a pair of Sabrinas. And it's not because I forced it on him. It's because there's now a light being shown on this game for us. And there's it's an apples to apples here to where we're looking at it from a respect factor. And so I think that will only continue to grow. And so where I believe that there's room for growth is from the storytelling element. And the more that we can incorporate storytelling, the more that you will have viewers gravitating towards this viewership. And so from my perspective, I'm a former Division I college basketball player myself. and being able to have this platform to kind of push and say, like, this data is very compelling. Let's pair that with a very good storyline for each of these players, and you're only going to see viewership increase because of that. And so for me, I think that's where we can do a better job, but the tide is kind of rising. And I think that we're riding a good wave of momentum to where all parties, kind of like all 4 of us on the stage here, are doing our best to be able to continue to push that momentum. So,
Julie, bring it home.
Yeah, thank you. I'll draft a bit on what Karen said, because I think that's something that we're really proud of too. Is it's the same within the 4 walls of ESPN. Is there's not one of us focused on women's sports or women's basketball, right? This is integrated now across our entire organization. Meaningfully, and so talking about women's sports, talking about storylines, talking about the editorial components of what we do, the sales elements, the marketing elements, all of that is integrated across our business deeply. And so when you're sitting at a table having a conversation, it's not just about the power of women's sports or what are we doing to make this better. You're engaging the entire organization deeply in those conversations, and I think that's a big piece of the success and the continued flywheel that we've been able to generate across the organization. I think it's an important difference that we're seeing now versus maybe where we were 10 years ago, for sure.
All right, well, that's a wrap for viewership and our panel. Thank you, guys.